Welcome back to another Red Lipstick Talk on YouTube and Facebook.
Hello, Renee.
Hi, Nefertiti.
Hello, Princess.
Alô.
Hi, Princess.
Eu vou atrás do trio elétrico, vou dançando nego toque do agogô, curtindo minha vaidade na go. Oi, oi, oi. Welcome.
Yay. Thank you, Princess.
Hi.
Fantastic.
So we're just gonna say we're so excited to have Princess here.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead. So people are not coming on yet. We want to give people a little bit of time to come on before we really start talking. So what was that like? While we're waiting for people to come up, what was that you started singing, Princess?
That was a carnival classic. Pinto de verão. That's like a song that everybody sings at carnival. Everybody. So much so that off the top of my head, I don't even remember who the original composer is, but everybody sings that song. It's off the top of my head. I was like, what am I gonna sing? Okay.
So it's so amazing because all three of us met in Salvador, Bahia.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
what
Bahia, the magical place.
Yes, so we all met in Bahia, that magical place. I don't remember, how did we meet? How did that happen?
Well, I'm not sure how. That's I just want everybody to know that song was called Baianidade Nago. I called it something else, and I was just like, that's not the name of that song. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not sure how you two ladies met, but I know I met Renee through some other people, and I think that we just descended upon one of your places of residence, and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is fun.
Oh, I think I remember. Weren't we at a party? And you sang at the party.
There's so much going on. I don't even remember.
I think there was a party that you sang at. And then how did you two meet, Princess and Nefertiti?
Like, it's because everything just was, everybody was everywhere.
Kind of in the same, it's kind of a little world. Like, it's a small world, and it's like I probably met you through someone that we mutually knew.
Yes.
Then, I was doing dance and performance stuff, so I'm sure there was some crossover with just some musicians that we mutually know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I met both of you guys through a mutual acquaintance. But I don't know at one point, because when I met both of you guys, there was so much going on with me. Everything was literally like, okay, I'm here now. Okay, I gotta go. I'm here now. I gotta go. So I don't remember the exact moment, but I just remember, like, after we met, I just kept seeing both of you guys' place, and I was like, oh, okay. There's a lot going on all the time.
And this was what year, Princess?
Kind
of we met
14 or 15.
2014.
Somewhere around there is when I met you guys.
Yeah.
Like maybe, somewhere around there, because 14, that was when I did The Voice, and there was a lot going on. So it may have been after that. It may have been before. I'm not sure.
So as people are starting to come on, we're excited. So today's going to be a two-part series, right? We're going to be talking about Black August, but we're going to start off first half of this two-part series. First half, we're going to be talking about finding your voice in Brazil. And it's very fitting that Princess sang on The Voice of Brazil.
Yes.
So Yeah, so we want to start off with first kind of talking about that life in Brazil, singing in Brazil. What was that like? Challenges, anything else you think of, Nefertiti, that we want to discuss with Princess, and then we go on and talk about Black August, the origins of that and why it's so important.
Yes. So Princess, want to welcome you to our show today and for accepting our invitation. And just so you, kind of get the sense, the feel of how we run our show here, it's very us talking, feeling good, being honest, and just really sharing and hearing your story. Renee and I love to hear people's stories, and it always like rattles something in our own memory, and we'll ask you more questions, be like, oh, really? That made me think, so we're just kind of, we love to have this space for us to kind of just delve into what our experiences have been. And sometimes when we take some time away from that experience, we kind of gain new insights. So we're excited to have you here. And so, if you just want to start talking about who are you for the folks out here who don't know Princess La Tremenda, kind of just tell us about who you are. And then from there, we can kind of go into what that time was in Brazil for you.
Okay. Well, my name is Princess, artistically known as Princess La Tremenda. My finding my voice in Brazil has been okay. So it goes back a ways because I first went to Brazil in 2002. I was already doing music here in the States. I actually was doing salsa. So I was singing with the salsa band out here. So it was we were lit. I came to Brazil with my capoeira group because I used to train capoeira like crazy. And so I came out there with that group, and of course, like going out there and just hearing all the sights, seeing all the sights and hearing all the sounds, I was just kind of taken in by the music, the drums, because at that point I was into a lot of Afro-Cuban stuff. So I lived with drummers. So I woke up with drums. I went to sleep with drums. So then going and seeing the Afro-Brazilian side, I was like, wow, I was at home. And so when I came back to the States that time, it just, Bahia just kind of was like imprinted on my heart. And I was like, I gotta go back. I gotta go back. But I came back and I was doing a bunch of stuff. And I finally went back in 2008. And I was recording a project at that time, and I wanted to really put some of the Afro-Brazilian drumming into it. So I said, well, I'm gonna take my computer and I'm gonna just do like a tour around Brazil. I started in Sao Paulo. I stayed out there for a few months, went to Rio a few months, and of course went back to Bahia. And the whole time I was recording different drummers and just musicians in general and writing my project. And it was a really, really, really fun experience because you got to see all the differences from city to city, and the differences in the consciousness of the people too. It was really cool to have, you coming there as a person from another country and people just kind of welcoming you into their culture and like, oh, let me show you this. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So, of course, I went back to Bahia. And I was just like, this is my place. And I started getting into, the samba reggae and all that, Ijexá, all that stuff. And I met a bunch of drummers and just started jamming with them. And it was just from there, it was like, okay, this is I'm into this. And
Salvador has a way of making you feel at home. Like when you were saying that, it was like, yes, like it just has this way of like sucking you in, but sucking you in a good way.
Yeah, especially if you're on the, you're part of the African diaspora. You begin to see so many similarities, with people that are, Afro ascended, some people say descended, ascended. So you get to see so many differences, but also so many similarities. And so it just kind of makes you feel, it's like, oh, okay, when you do that, I know what that means. So I know I can respond like this. And it's a total, like, it's almost like connecting the dots it might be in a different language or it may be in a different rhythm, but it's like your body just instantly, at least in my experience, my body just instantly knew what to do. It was like, oh, this is what we do. Okay.
You just saying that we all started doing this.
You know, you're the dance, so you know, you're like,
yeah.
Mhm.
But it was just, I mean, it was just a natural fit. And I met a bunch of musicians and I made a bunch of connections and I started doing shows. And this is, of course, long before The Voice. I was already doing shows. I had already done Carnival by then.
Well, how did you get onto The Voice of Brazil? Inquiring minds want to know, like me.
Hold on, Renee. Before the inquiring mind, can I ask one question before The Voice?
Yes.
So, Princess, I just wanted to ask you about the experience of, well, two things. What is it like? What was it like for you to connect with musicians in Brazil in relation to your life in Atlanta? Because I know you were a musician there. Like, how does it compare? Just to connect with people, is it the same? Is it different? And then the second part of that question is like, if you notice something different because you are a woman going into this context that's other, that's different, if that was something that was different, that was challenging, how you work through it.
Well, as far as musicians, dealing with musicians here and dealing with musicians there, it was pretty much the same because I'm a woman. So it's pretty much the same. And, you know, I'm an attractive woman. So you always have to be careful, you know, going into these situations because like, I know everybody wants to sleep with me. I know everybody wants. So it's like you almost kind of have to like come in with this suit of armor on and everybody calls you all kinds of B's and this because they think you think you're stuck up. But it's really like, no, I know the game. And so that part was similar, meeting with the musicians. The part about being a woman was a little bit more intense in Brazil because of the sexism that is just
different grade, yeah.
I mean, we all experience sexism everywhere in the world, but some places are a little more behind the times, and especially in Bahia, because Sao Paulo, I didn't find it to be as old school, as colonial. But I just remember that time coming to Brazil and trying to like, you know, consciously meet musicians. So I had to go and I had to talk to a bunch of men that I didn't know. You know, there's this pretty American girl and she's just talking, but I know she wants me. So it was I always had to deal with that. Like I had so many rumors about me. I had slept with everybody according to what was happening in the streets. Meanwhile, I'm at the house by myself. And I remember there was I had to deal with some really rude people. Like there was this musician, he was just like a little drummer dude. And he liked me, but he was not at all my type. It was just never, it was no. But I was always present. I always spoke to him. And I remember one day I was just walking by myself and he had saw me saying goodbye to somebody. And I guess he assumed that I'm sleeping with him now. So he made some comment like, "Oh, you just doing everybody," and I'm like, "Excuse me."
Did you notice that? Did that happen to you in the U.S. as well with music, or was that?
No, usually in the U.S. they don't really care. They just want some. They don't care who you been with. They're like, I heard you was with such and such, but you want to be with me. So I guess you could say it's evolved a bit in the States, but not really.
Yeah,
right. Someone put a face, that wild face.
I brought this up, Princess, because I think, you know, and I want to hear from you if you were able to, like, build with women musicians in Brazil, if you know, because I know that the visibility for women musicians is also problematic. And, you know, it's like and I bring this up because for folks who are interested in going abroad to study a different kind of music form or another traditional art form, sexism is often in the way of that, or it creates a different kind of challenge. So it's like if somebody who's woman identified like we are wants to not let that get in the way of their right to go and explore a different culture, connect with the music, what are some kind of tips, I guess, you would give somebody wanting to do that?
In low expectations. Because the stuff, I mean, I would not wish the stuff that I had to go through on anybody. And I did. I worked with a lot of, tried to work with a lot of female musicians. When I was out there in 2008, 2009, that first year I did Carnival, I was with, an all-female drum group. And there were some issues, you know. It's a lot of
what were some of the issues you experienced with all-female drum group? Like, what was the difference between, you said you end up working a lot with men. So what was the difference between working with men and women in Brazil?
Yes. So I was asked to join an all-women's drum group, their float for Carnival. And of course I was like, oh, this is freaking amazing. Of course I'll do it. But the women were not happy about it. It was almost kind of like they thought I was going to come in and take their spot. So they did everything to not make me feel welcome. Not at all make me feel welcome. Like so much so, like we had to do a couple of shows before Carnival. So we did a couple of shows, and because I was a guest. And whenever you have a guest artist coming in, they do what they do because they're a guest artist. So I came in, I had my clothes that I wear, and they were all dressed alike. And they assumed that I thought I was trying to be better than them because I had my own clothes on. And it was like, no, for one, this is what you do with a guest artist. For two, I wasn't told that I needed to dress like you. For three, I'm just visiting. So I'm not a part of your group, you know? So it wasn't me trying to slight them. It was just, this is kind of how it works in the professional music world. But it was very much like they just had this kind of, So when we would have rehearsals, you know, who invited me was like, okay, there's rehearsals. You need to go and rehearse with the girls. They made sure I didn't have any of the song lists. They made sure I didn't know. And at this time, my Portuguese was conversational, but I didn't know like the songs that they were singing. And so basically I was going to rehearsals, but like I said, I would be like, well, what songs are we doing? So I could look them up. Oh, we don't have the list. Oh, you just stand over there. Oh, you just, so I was just sitting there like a dumbass. But unfortunately for them, what they didn't know is that's the same hazing you get working with men. So while it sucked and it hurt because it was coming from women, I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. So, I mean, you do. So when Carnival came around, I didn't have the song list. I didn't know the songs, but damn it, just like how I learned Spanish, phonetically, I was up there. Oh, that's what you're saying? Okay, I can imitate that. Da, 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 da. And the day of the big day of Carnival, like when the cameras were out, when we did during the day, I got on there and I was like, well, where do I stand? And there was two girls on one end and it was me and another girl on another end. There's supposed to be 2 and 2. So I asked the main singer, I said, you know, where should I stand? And she was like, I don't know, wherever you want to go over there. And so I was like, okay, I went over there. And that just happened to be the front of the float. So when the cameras came on, I was in the front.
You said you don't know, go wherever. So I just happened to go in front of the float.
When I tell you, they was big mad. They was big mad. They came running over when the cameras, but it's just like, God don't like ugly. And there was a couple of other things they did, but it was just so catty and so nasty. And the other girl who was on that side with me, she was a part of that group, but she was somebody that they bullied. They considered her like, she had a great voice, but she was just kind of like timid and, and they just bullied her. So wherever they were just like, you go over there, you do this, you do that. And she just did it. But of course, with me up there, I was like, girl, come on, let's rock this shit. She's like, really? We're doing this? And I was like, we doing this. So we had it lit. It was amazing. even with all of that crazy stuff. But for anybody, I would say don't trust nobody. Don't trust nobody. Have a thick skin and do what you came there to do, because I have dealt with a lot of things that I have not spoken about with a smile, and people might think that, you know, everything was sweet, and it was definitely not. Even on The Voice, there's so much BTS behind the scenes stuff that was going on that nobody knows, and I did not give my best performance because of it. And sometimes, like, talking about that time, I'm just like, dang, like I could have done so much better, but there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And
do you feel like it was more challenging doing The Voice because you were American and not being Brazilian?
That was a part of it. The other part was there was people around me that had some envy and had, you know, some jealousy that I thought were my friends. So as things started happening, I started getting more visible. Their behavior towards me started changing. And there were people that I found out were talking negatively about me behind my back. There were people that were making up things about me behind my back. And it was hard for me as an American because I was by myself. So I'm by myself. All of this stuff is happening. All of this stuff is happening, and I have to smile. I'm supposed to smile, hey, get interviewed, hey. And so what should have been a really, really amazing time was very stressful for me. And I tell people, I'm like, make sure if you're doing anything like that, make sure you have solid support, because I found that I had a lot of snakes in my grass. And I'm resilient, so you know, I dealt with it, but it was a very interesting time, and luckily I am resilient because you know, I was able to accomplish a lot of things that I still wanted to do even with all of that. So they can't stop me.
And what you mentioned, you know, I think that's a great thing to say. A tip for anything is to make sure you have solid support. Like whether it's singing, whether it's pursuing a degree, whether it's, you know, throwing yourself into, you know, a new state, a new country. What for you, what does solid support look like?
Solid support looks like people who you can trust, who will always have your back. You know, if they're in proximity of people who are speaking bad about you, then they'll, you know, hey, don't talk about them, or that's not true. It also looks like somebody who at the end of the day, when you've gone through all of this, maybe can hold your hand, or, you know, give you a hug when you're crying, and let you know that, hey, you can get through this. And that is a huge thing. Just knowing that you have somebody, no matter if it's a friend, if it's family, that can just kind of put their arm around you and really understand the essence of who you are is not this situation. It's like, no, you're still dope. Even though this stuff is happening, like you're still dope. So when I was there in that situation, I had to do a lot of that myself, or I called a couple people in the States, but it was hard because they were in the States, and I was just like, I need you now.
You know, one of the things that you said, that you're resilient, I think that's really important. And I think that that's one of the things that living in Brazil, especially Salvador, brings out that resilience. And it helps you to realize how resilient we are.
Yes.
You know, it helps us to find those different tools, those different things that we need to support us, you know, and to help us.
For sure.
We do have a question here. PB says, how did you learn how to do those things for yourself?
Good question.
Hello, PB, and welcome back. Thank you for your question. Love when we get repeats, you know, people coming back on. Great support. Thank you.
I'm assuming that they mean to kind of support myself or motivate myself type thing, those things. I think for me personally, just knowing that I was all I had.
Mhm.
And I was really the only one I could fully trust at that moment. It was either, you know, do everything to hold on to myself or die. Not even to be overly dramatic, but it was at points, it was that low that I felt. And it was like,
Wow.
well, are you ready to leave the earth? And I was like, no. Okay, well, we gotta do what we gotta do. We gotta meditate. We gotta go do some exercise, because exercise for me is always kind of like a meditative process. So I would go for long walks. I would go, I would meditate, you know, singing, like going to like jam with friends helped me, like anything to kind of raise my vibration. Anything that I could do that made me feel happy. If it was watching stand-up comedy, I just looked for any little things that just brought me a little joy. And then after a while, they just, you know, they came together, and I made it through.
You know, and it's so interesting as you say that. I'm just thinking, you know, and I knew you, and I never knew all of this, right? Until right now. And it's so interesting that, you know, when we live abroad and people can be going through something and you just never know. Like, you just never know. Like, I would have never known that you went through all of that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important to even figure out, okay, when I'm going through this, how can I have a support network with the people here? Like, you know, like, and it's important because we don't even think about this. Like, I have tons of, you know, expats here, and I'm here, and just to think of reaching out to say, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
How's it going? You know, do you need anything? Like, just those little simple things can make a world of a difference.
Yeah.
For
me, another thing that I used to do out there is I would go out to like Chapada. I would just leave and be out there. I saw Neff there one time.
I saw her there one time too.
But that's really why I was out there, because there was so much going on. I just kind of needed to get away from the city. One of the good things that came out of The Voice is I made this community of friends that live in Chapada. And one of them owns a really nice hotel, and they invited me to come stay, and they haven't been able to get rid of me since. Whenever I'm in Bahia, I'm like, I'm coming through. They took care of me, you know, they fed me, they danced with me, we just had a ball. So whenever I'm in Bahia, I go to Chapada, and they just welcome me out there in Lençóis specifically. So
this was a fellow contestant?
What was that?
Was this a fellow contestant of the show, or was this
no? This was a friend of an artist friend of mine. Gerónimo Santana, the composer, is a really, really good friend of mine, and that person was also and is still a balm in my life. Like, whenever stuff was going crazy out there, he was always like, come on, let me take you over here. Come on, let me meet you. And I met like all kinds of people through him. Like, that's like my big brother. I love that man. I won't let nobody say anything negative about Gerónimo Santana.
So we have another question here. PB says beautiful. And Tonya, welcome back, Tonya. Hello. Says, how long have you lived abroad?
Does she mean me or you guys?
Well, we can all say how long we've lived abroad, since we've all lived abroad. I'm the only one still here in Brazil, but I've been living here for 10 years. So, yes.
Yeah. Well, the last time I was in Brazil, I was there for 2 years, but I've also lived in Spain for a little while back in the day. But off and on in Brazil for months at a time now.
Yeah. Right. And I'm 7 years. I'm just back in the Bay Area for a few, I don't know how many months because of COVID, but before the end of the year, I'll probably head back to Brazil. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking, I'm like, I have more questions for Princess.
Well, let me go back to my first question that we didn't get answered. Because there might be people who want to sing and who would like to be on The Voice or something.
Yeah.
So how did you get on that? How was that? What was that process like? How did that I might want to sing on The Voice of Brazil.
Okay. I recorded a video and I sent it into them. And I was like, oh, they ain't gonna get that, whatever. I recorded a video and I sent it. I didn't have any prior connections because a lot of people on there have prior connections. I found out. I was like, what? Y'all cheated.
Yeah.
But I sent in a video of me singing one song in English and one song in Portuguese. And then they hit me up.
Oh, good. Yeah, and that's important because I think a lot of times people are not, they feel discouraged to try something like this. Like, oh, you know, I'm not from there. I don't know anyone. I'm not going to do it. So I think it's important to be able to hear these stories, you know? So
yeah, definitely. I sent in a video and be your unique self. That's all I would say. Just, you know, don't try to feel like you need to fit some mold like it's TV. So the more interesting is always better.
Yes. So true. Yeah. So maybe one more question before we wrap up this first half, and then we'll have a nice clip of Princess singing. A nice clip of her.
Fantastic. Yeah, Princess, I guess just reflecting on that time and all of that experience, you know, from the traveling to having to confront kind of the lack of support, you know, in the music industry in Brazil. And I don't know if it's the same in the US, but I feel like
music industry period.
Performance, there's a great lack of collective mentality, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, I'll say as well, as somebody who gave up dancing precisely because of that attitude of walking into a room and just being studied, you know, that's the competition. I'm going to shut you out and you're like my competition. I was like, this isn't an ethic that I, you know, that I want to live with. So I'm going to just quit dancing, and how powerful that kind of attitude is. But you said, you know what, I'm going to keep singing. This is who I am. So I want to recognize that that's hard. Like I gave up in my life where I said no, and I stopped dancing for years because I didn't.
Well, funny enough, I didn't give up when I was in Brazil, but when I came back here, I did stop doing music for a little while, and I was very disenchanted with, I don't even know if it was the music industry. Probably, because before that, I've always been independent. I've always done my own stuff, and I was fine. But getting into The Voice and really getting into the industry aspect of music, which I never wanted, I saw a lot of ugly things, and it made me not want to be a part of it because it wasn't fun. It wasn't like in when I was in Brazil, it is. I mean, Bahia, people are starving. Artists are starving. So they don't care if you're nice. They don't care if you're bomb. They want to eat their plate and yours. So that's just, as an artist, like if you're not giving it back to them, then you just gonna be upset. And I'm pretty assertive, so I can, you know, but shit, I'm also a water sign, so that'll be hurting my feelings. Right. In your face. I might even cuss you out, but I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna cry a little bit.
We got a comment real quick from Kelly. Hello, Kelly. She says, "Oops, I resonate with your speech. It's heartbreaking. We need more love, please.
Yes.
More sense of unity for a common cause and less ego." Yes.
Ego.
And we got a great question from PB. We got to get to that because this is a really good question. How did you find your unique self, especially abroad?
Well, I think going abroad was actually part of my being my unique self. I've always been unique. I've always been somewhere that people didn't think I was supposed to, even as a child. I moved around a lot. I was always the new girl. So just being unique was my life. And it's only as an adult that it was actually a good thing. Because, you know, as a kid, you want to blend in. But I never blended in. It was like this kid who has this experience and that experience, and now she's here. And she got my damn nerves. But so I've always dealt with like people kind of hating a little bit, or people kind of being intimidated by me. So I've always been unique, but I found my voice, I think, in the worst parts of it. Like when things were really, really, really kind of, when I saw too much ugliness, I think I really realized how unique I was once I got through that. Because I said, okay, so I'm still here. So there's obviously an even bigger purpose for me. So this was cool, but this is not my end all be all.
Well,
So
it's
it
cool
was like
because
in the mud, I found it. I was like, oh, but I'm still here.
and you've evolved so much. Like now, you know, like it's just amazing. Like you've evolved into this healer. You know, you know, you're doing massage and you're affecting people in a different way. So not only with your voice, so through the voice, the music, but with your touch. And now you're selling yoni thrones, you know, and making yoni herbs to really heal women, you know, that need that. So you're doing something great. So even though, you know, you were saying earlier how now that you're back in the States, you kind of lost that voice, you stopped singing, but you found another cause, another mission.
I did. And that actually opened me back up to music because now I'm back in the studio. So it was like for a while I was kind of like, what do I do now? Because I had made this image, I'm doing music, and now it's not coming from my heart anymore. So for like a couple years, I was just kind of looking for stuff, you know. I focused on doing interpreting. I was doing Spanish and Portuguese interpreting, and I was like, this is cool, but I don't feel the passion. And you know, once I got back into my healing, you know, I've been a massage therapist for 15 years. So I've always been healing people. But once I really started getting into doing the yoni stools and things, it just kind of awakened something. It was like, okay, this is where it's gonna come from. And like I said, like now I want to do music again. And I'm like, it's good. Because people are like, when are we gonna do some music? When are you gonna do some shows? I'm like,
but you know what you said is so important because our life goes in ebbs and flows, right? So it's not always like this is what I'm supposed to be doing, this is what I have to do all the time. Sometimes you need a break to get back to it. Sometimes you need a break for other things to come up, and then you could possibly get back to it and be even better. Or you do, you know, something completely different as well. And I want to touch on PB's question about finding unique self abroad. Like for me, I want to answer that question for myself, and maybe Nefertiti, you want to as well. I don't know, but you know, so for me, I was a psychotherapist, and that's what I knew. You know, all my life, I knew I wanted to become a therapist. I never thought of doing anything else, right? I never thought about being a lawyer, doctor, engineer, nothing. Like friends were always coming to me asking for advice. I knew that's what I'm going to do. Going into Brazil, moving to Brazil, because I didn't speak the language, I could no longer be a therapist in the beginning, right? And I wasn't doing virtual work. So I did what a lot of people did, started teaching English because everybody wants to learn English, and that was an easy way. But then opening up and allowing myself to explore and try different things. You know, I explored with shamanism, many different indigenous practices, and then Tantra. And so through that, I found my unique self. And I found that Tantra is my work. Like I had always had a lot of sexual energy and loved working with that sexuality. I'm always flirting to the point where people thought I was flirting when I really wasn't. And so me being open to explore different things, I found my passion, I found my mission. And so, you know, so now instead of just doing psychotherapy, I do therapy in different ways where I'm including sexuality, sex therapy, Tantra. And for me, I found who I am. I found that I'm also a connector, a bridge to connect people. You know, a lot of times I connect people, then I'm out of their lives. I don't even keep in touch with people. Most of the times I don't keep in touch with people. But you know, so anyway, you know, so you find that, but I think the key is being open as well, being open to explore different things and seeing different things.
Yeah, I think echoing you, Renee, and you, Princess, I'm just sort of thinking here about my own experience. I think that your stories, how they resonate with my own is when you're abroad, you kind of see, you're testing all your limits and all of your boundaries, and you kind of see how far you can go until it's like, okay, this is my boundary and this is my limit. And sometimes to get there, it's more difficult than we had, expected. And other times it surprises us. So it's almost like this experience where you're like opening yourself up. First of all, to always present yourself. You're always being asked, oh, where are you from? Because you have an accent. And then, but, explain what's your story. So you're always telling your story, and how you tell your story and what elements and details get included or not also is a way that we sort of create who we are abroad. And, how am I unique? Who am I? And what makes me special? But this other part of like, being like, okay, I'm going to try and sing, or I want to be, if I get invited to sing and be in these groups, I'm going to go for it. And then you're hit with all this stuff. You kind of recognize, okay, I'm actually about this and I'm not about this. And this experience has made it clear for me. And so I think when you're abroad and you're kind of opening yourself up to try something, you also get that lesson in the most tangible way, in the most memorable way, that kind of continues with you as you move forward in your life. Like you have these very memorable experiences that name for you, like, this is who I'm about in the world, and these are my limits and my boundaries and my parameters that also kind of keep me grounded and moving forward. So, yeah.
That's very true.
Very, very true.
I definitely learned what I was made of abroad.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I definitely think, one of the things after living here, I went to my nieces and nephews. I was like, y'all should all live abroad. Y'all should. Like you learn so much about yourself. You become resilient. And I would say, I would joke and say, once I lived in New York, in Salvador, I could make it anywhere. If I could make it in Salvador, I could make it anywhere, right? Like at least. But I really think
that's so true.
But I really think it's anywhere that you live, abroad. Like you learn how you're resilient. You learn different resources to keep you going. So
yeah, but Salvador was a special school because it was different than when I lived in Spain. Spain was a lot easier to maneuver. Yeah. Salvador is tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah. So last comment, and then we're gonna, really thank you, Princess, for coming out, so we can go on to that second part. But I love, PB said great answers.
Thank you, PB.
Even though I'm not going abroad now, I'm feeling called to step into a new expansive version of myself and work. Thank you all so much. I get so much value from your talk.
Thank you.
Thank you for constantly coming back and commenting and asking questions. So awesome.
Thank you so much. So Princess, I don't know if there's any kind of last thoughts you want to share just now that you are who you are now, the work you're doing. If people want to follow you, how can they contact?
Well, my contact on there is IG, and feel more than, free to DM or, whatever. The only thing I want to impart is just, when you're in those dark places, realize that everything is cyclical and that you just probably need to try some different things. Because sometimes we get stagnant and we just sit in the stagnancy. Stagnancy just means you need to try something different. That's it. And sometimes we got to try 5, 10 different things before we're like, oh, that's the thing.
Right.
But it's not over. And PB, follow that expansion. Follow that that's evolution calling you. That's like, baby, that was cool, but that's not working for you no more. So let's try something else or add something to it.
Yes.
But that's it. I'm so happy. That was such a good talk.
Yay! That's awesome. Thank you. And you just made me think when you said that. Sorry, I know we're trying to move on to the second part. Like you just made me think really quick that for PB, that expansion could happen even if you don't move abroad. Like you don't have to move abroad for that expansion. If you're feeling called to step into a new expansive version of yourself, you could do that from home. You could do that from where you are. And
we kind of have to do it.
One of the we have to, right, with this quarantine. And one of the things that Princess talked about, like, for her, helping her, going out and meditating, going to Chapada Diamantina where we would all go is in the middle. It's just in nature. You know, you're not in a big city. You can connect to the nature, be with yourself, get grounded, you know, so doing things like that. And right now, there's so many different things, you know, there's so many things online now that's free that you could do. PB, speaking of that, on Saturdays, we lead a free meditation, Nefertiti and I. So that's something that you can take a part of. It's at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come on Saturdays, do some meditation. And it's really about, we do meditation and movement that's going to help you with, you know, getting grounded, connecting to yourself, connecting to your body, and allowing yourself to expand. So check that out. We have the flyers on our Facebook. Actually, while we're closing off and we're putting that clip, I can get the Zoom link and put it on here for Saturday. And come join us on that. Those are just some great ways to really, you know, go into yourself and find a better version of yourself, you know? So
yes, and Princess, we're extending the invitation to you if you'd like to come every Saturday, 11 a.m. Renee and I hold this space for POC folks. It's free. It's great. Kids are welcome too. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Yes,
Thank you so
exactly. Do something different. That's it.
Thank you so much, Princess. It was really
Thank you, ladies. This was awesome.
Yay, we're gonna send you off with sharing folks here a clip of you from The Voice in Brazil.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, here we go.
That was a really cool one.
The moment I wake up, before I put on my makeup, say a little prayer for you. Welcoming my head now, and wondering what dress.
Woohoo.
Thank you so much. Fantastic.
Thank you, ladies. Have a good night.
All right, have a good night. Thank you so much for being here, being on this. Oh, this is blocking your face. I think we got to get up that share. There you go. So thank you so much, Princess, for being on here again. It was amazing. People love you. Kelly says bye. It says Renee, gorgeous. Good to see you too. PB says thank you for the tips and resources. All right. So have a great one.
Thank you, ladies. Have a good evening.
All right, you too. Bye. PB says, wow. So that was awesome. That was awesome.
So fantastic. So fantastic.
Yes. So good thing this is a 2-part series. So next week we can continue on with the Black August month. But you know, this is Black August and it's August 14th. So we're into the 14th day. So we wanted to really be able to talk about it and share the origins of Black August. So people can kind of be aware of that, of what this is all about.
Yes, yes. So Renee, I think it's really interesting. I think right now, you know, I think on Tuesday, right, we were on the phone and you said Kamala Harris just got named the VP on the VP ticket. To be Joe Biden's running mate. Yes. And it was all kinds of emotions because, you know, this is the first woman of color, first Black woman, first Indian American woman ever to be on a major party ticket in this position. So it's a historical moment. Kamala Harris has done amazing work as a senator, trying to do reforms. She was also a prosecutor in California and an attorney general in San Francisco, who had some, you know, tense. I think her record in terms of where she was at with police reform is difficult because she had, you know, there was the police union, which is very powerful in the land. And so all this happening during Black August, which is, you it's a month that began to be commemorated in 1979, 9 years after what was to become the Soledad Brothers Rebellion. So for folks who
And
are
in
not
California as well, right? And which is the interesting thing, because Kamala Harris was out of California. So to just bring that connection.
Yes. So it honors, in actuality, it honors the life of George Jackson, who was a freedom fighter, prisoner rights leader, Black Panther Party member, who was actually murdered by prison guards in 1971, in August 21st, 1971, as he was trying to escape San Quentin prison, which is actually about half an hour from where I'm sitting right now. So who was George Jackson? Who was this political powerful leader who at the time mobilized tons and tons of people in the prison population and beyond? So he was, George Jackson was born in Chicago, but as a kid moved to Watts with his mother, and he was the second of 5 children. And she had put him in a Catholic school, and she had told him, if you want to be good in this world, if you want to make something of yourself, you need to be twice as better as white people, because then you might actually get somewhere. And so, as folks of color, we know this to be very true. And when we have to confront that, it's frustrating, it's difficult. So he was actually put in a Catholic school with white students, was constantly having to defend who he was, to fight for his voice. And as he got into his teens, he got into some, petty crime here and there. He was 18. He was accused of armed robbery at a gas station, of trying to steal $70. He actually was innocent, but at the time, the public defender had told him, you know what, take the plea deal so you can get a lower sentence. So he pleaded guilty, and he actually got a 1 year to life sentence. Now, at the time, this was an awful, tactic used mostly against, Black and Mexican and Latino people who were being convicted of crimes, of creating this window of like 1 year to life, and you never knew when you would be let out. So he ended up serving 10 years of that 1 year to life sentence for a petty robbery that he was innocent of. And he actually ended up serving 7 of those years in solitary confinement.
Wow.
Why? Why was he in solitary confinement? Yeah. So while he was in prison, he got a lot of, I think it's called like behavioral markups. He got a number of them, and they ended up putting him in solitary confinement. While he was in solitary, he started to read a lot of revolutionary Marxist material. He read Marx, he read Mao, he read Ho Chi Minh, and this like changed his outlook because it gave him a context for the cruelty of his condition, of being a Black man in the United States. And so he was like, okay, this is what it's about. I need to mobilize the prison population for everybody here, for prisoners to understand who we are in this context. And so he would hold secret political meetings to try and unify the prisoner class. And what he would say is, what we're trying to do is to move folks away from a criminal mentality to a revolutionary mentality. And so he started this 1964-65, right around the time of Malcolm X coming to more prominence, civil rights movement. And so this is what was going on in the prison population in San Quentin. He eventually became a Black Panther Party member, and he was committed to building this prison movement, which was to prove, in his words, to the state that the concentration camp theory wouldn't work on Black people. So there was a very deep commitment to liberating his folks. So what happened in 1970? So he was actually at Soledad prison. So at the time, Soledad prison was an awful place in that a lot of the prison guards used race to incite fights between the different gangs. So you had the Mexican Mafia, you had the Aryan Brotherhood, you had the Black Guerrilla Family, you had all these different organized gang groups that were divided along racial lines, and a lot of the guards would pit them against each other, create stories to incite a lot of violence, which would then justify their control of this population. So what happened was 1970 at Soledad Prison, they released in a new like prison yard, they released a number of prisoners from different racial groups, which they had not been doing as much, and they put them all in the yard. And eventually, you know, a fist fight broke out, and there was a prison guard who was up in a watchtower. He was said to have perfect aim and shot capabilities, and he ended up shooting 3 Black inmates. And 3 of those inmates were actually inmates who had been doing political work and who had been targeted because they were organizing prisoners. And so what happened was there was a retaliation killing of an officer about a couple months after that, or a month after that. And the who they had identified as primary suspects in killing this second officer were 3 men, and George Jackson was one of them. And they were known as the Soledad Brothers. And so during this time, you know, according to their attorneys, it was George Jackson, Drumgo, and John Clichet. They were all charged with murder, not because there was any substantial evidence of their guilt, but because they had been previously identified as Black militants. So again, another way to target and destroy in some way the movement that was happening in the prisons. And so if they were convicted, they would get a mandatory death penalty under California Penal Code. So within weeks, the case of the Soledad Brothers became a political cause. This was 1970, to fight for their freedom and against this sort of unjust conviction. So, you know, before they were going to go to their first trial in August of 1970, George Jackson's younger brother, Jonathan, he was 17 at the time, he staged a raid on the Marin County courthouse with a satchel of guns, an assault rifle, and a shotgun hidden under his coat.
Wow.
And he came in there, he took hostage the judge, he took out 4 other inmates and 5 hostages. And on his way out, he was demanding that the Soledad Brothers be released within 30 minutes.
Wow.
Shootout ensued, and Jonathan actually died trying to liberate his brother and all of the Soledad Brothers from this situation. Yeah.
Mm.
So we honor Jonathan Jackson as well as a freedom fighter at this time. And so George Jackson, he shortly after his brother's death, he released Soledad Brother Prison Writings, which is a book of letters he had written over 6 years while in solitary that really illuminate a lot of his revolutionary thinking, letters to his mother, to friends on the outside, to Angela Davis. They actually developed a very intimate personal relationship. And so we also see some of those letters for the folks who like love stories. It's in there. But, you know, it's a really powerful book that he released. And, you know,
What is the book called?
It's called Soledad Brother Prison Writings by George Jackson. So I'm going to read a quick little quote from the book. Settle your quarrels.
Sorry, say that again. I want to type it to put it up.
Yeah.
Soledad Brother.
Soledad Brother, Prison Writings by George Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to read a quote that I think is really relevant for us at this moment. So here we go. Settle your quarrels. Come together. Understand the reality of our situation. Understand that fascism is already here, that people are already dying who could be saved, that generations more will live poor, butchered half-lives if you fail to act. Do what must be done. Discover your humanity and your love in revolution. So, yes,
beautiful.
I think that's really relevant for us now to carry that legacy forward.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, less than a year after that situation, he was murdered during an attempt to escape San Quentin. So he was trying to escape and he was shot point blank. And actually 2 weeks before his murder, he released a second book called Blood in My Eye. So for folks who want to read up more on who George Jackson was, on what this prisoners movement was, on who he was in relation to the larger movement for Black liberation, he called himself an internationalist with this, really committed to all oppressed people's liberation. And I think it's interesting that we call on this today because, the prison industrial complex is bigger than it has been ever. Billions and billions of dollars, millions of dollars of our tax dollars going towards imprisoning more and more people, more and more Black and brown people, as opposed to educating ourselves. And so I think, we're in a moment where defund the police is a hashtag. I think that's really powerful. And I think when we say defund the police, we're talking about taking that money and investing it in our communities in a myriad of ways that we know.
Oh, yes.
So yes, Black August is dope. Connect with George Jackson and his history. It is at a time when I think it just encourages us even more to continue to be vigilant, to continue to be connected to different movements right now doing this work. So I want to name a few. Renee, if you want to type them in, feel free. There's two things for folks out there. So there's Critical Resistance. It's an organization that is an abolitionist organization working for the rights of incarcerated folks and formerly incarcerated folks for more than 2 decades. Their names are criticalresistance.org. They have a lot of great actions that they're doing if folks want to connect, be a part of that movement as well. And then there's the Movement for Black Lives. So the Movement for Black Lives at the end of this month, on August 28th, will have a Black Congress, National Black Congress, for anyone to join, to talk about, and share what it is, what is our platform, what is our demand. And that will be it. So if you go to the Movement for Black Lives website, movementforblacklivescom, you can get more information on how to register for that. So yeah, we continue. The legacy continues. We got a lot to do. It's just getting crazier and crazier. And yeah, it's real. It's real. So what do you think, Renee? Did you know all of this already?
I just learned a lot. It was awesome. And this was a great opening because, this is why we're going to do a 2-part. So next week, we're going to go even more beyond the origins and talk about some other things that happened in August. So we are going to put Nefertiti, because she's great at this. She's going to add some extra stuff in our Patreon page with extra resources and information about Patreon in our Patreon about Black August. So again, we created Patreon. We haven't put anything on there yet, but we're going to start putting today many different tips. We're going to start putting clips from previous sessions, resources, lots of great information. And joining our Patreon helps support us so that we can continue to offer these lives every Friday and share this wonderful information, as well as offer the free meditations on Saturdays. So the free meditations that both Nefertiti and I do is for the community, to really just kind of work through the stress, the anxiety, do some movement, dance, meditation, active meditation. So joining our Patreon would really help us to just, continue to put this out there for everyone, because it takes work, it takes time. We're planning, and our membership goes from $3 a month up to $10 a month. So it really is. We have $3, right? So it's $3, $5, or $10 a month. We have 3 tiers. So support our work so we can keep doing this every Friday, give you great information, as well as being able to offer the free meditation. And you are all welcome to join the meditation as well. I put that link up on here. And we'll continue on. So next week, we're going to have Elisa Sanders on, who's also a singer who found her voice in Brazil. She didn't sing beforehand. She started singing once she was in Brazil. And then we'll go on and continue on with the Black August. So join us next week, Friday, on the 21st. I'm excited. All right. So you want to close off with anything, Nefertiti? And you look great, by the way. Still loving your new haircut.
Thank you. Yeah, no, Renee, I'm just happy to have had our show today. It made me feel great. I'm glad. It was great to see folks connecting too. We love doing this. We want to keep doing this. Definitely, consider being a Patreon member. so we can keep doing this work, so women of color who do this work can be valued in a good way as well. So yeah. That's it.
Yes, we thank you. We thank you all for your support. Thank you for coming back. Love when we have people come on again. Thank you, Kelly, PB, and Daffodil.
Yes,
Antonia. Thank you all for coming on. And Linda, thank you. Linda came on in the last minute to tell us awesome job. Awesome, awesome, awesome. If you missed the beginning, go back on YouTube and watch the replay so you can see the awesome talk and hear Princess sing at the beginning. So, all right, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye, Renee.
Bye. Bye. Love you all. Bye.